You're listening to the Multiverse Fancast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
All right, then. On with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fancast. Don't forget, you can take us on the go with Podbean, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or any other listening stations. You can also check out our content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. And with me today, I have Paul. Paul, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ronnie. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
And we also have Rob. Rob, how are you?
I'm still recovering from having watched Morbius last week.
Aren't we all? But we are here today. We are going to be talking about Blade. So we're kind of sticking with the vampire theme, going from Morbius to Blade. For the structure of the show, we're going to do a little quick character study, kind of give a history of the character Blade, and then we're going to talk about the movie Blade, and then kind of sort of the other two and the other one as well. But first, we have
Killing it, Ronnie.
a bit of news. Rob?
Sure. So I've got it's been actually kind of a slow news week. So the first and the bigger of the things that happened this week all revolved around the Flash's Ezra Miller.
Also, let's not forget The Secrets of Dumbledore's Ezra Miller.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
That's right. Is he in the new one?
That comes
Yes.
out next week.
Okay, I didn't know he was in that one too. I knew he was in the last one.
Very strange timing for all this.
So Ezra Miller ran into some legal problems recently. Paul, you want to take us through those a little bit?
Well, it seems that Ezra Miller was at a bar. It sounds like in Hawaii?
Yes.
Yes, it
It was
was.
in Hawaii.
At a bar in Hawaii, and he got into an altercation with another couple there, and they were doing karaoke, and I guess he started heckling, and apparently assault and harassment charges were filed, and yeah, he was taken into custody for
Not
it.
assault. Disorderly conduct and harassment.
Oh,
Because
even
all
better.
he did was snatch the microphone from the girl and he lunged at the guy playing darts.
Okay. But
Love it.
my understanding is it doesn't end there, does it?
He's had previous.
Well, no, I mean with this
troubles.
couple.
Oh, I think they want to do a restraining order
Yeah.
and all
Yeah,
that
because
stuff.
my understanding was then he went to their hotel room or something afterwards and
is a horror
continued
story.
to harass them. Like it just kept going, and they filed a restraining order against him now. What I do know for sure is, because of course this is all allegedly, but
Because this is America.
Yes.
And it's allegedly until proven guilty.
correct. But what we do know is that DC had an emergency meeting about Ezra Miller and discussing sort of how they're going to handle this.
So Miller allegedly broke into the couple's bedroom and proceeded
Okay.
to steal their wallets, credit cards, debit cards, bank possessions, passports, driver's licenses, social security cards.
Allegedly.
Yeah, that is like, yeah.
That's a lot.
But so it was confirmed that WB did have a meeting about all this, but they are now downplaying the severity of consequences for him in regards to it. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Ezra Miller has had a lot of trouble in the past with the law.
Yeah.
There was like the video that came out of him choking a woman.
Oh, yeah.
That was a few years ago. Or no, scratch that. That was 2 years ago now that I'm reading it. Wow. But yeah, he's definitely... He's 20 grams of marijuana at one point. Like
there's something not right with him.
yeah,
We need to talk about Ezra.
I get that joke.
Thank you. I wasn't sure anyone would. You want to explain it for the audience?
There's a movie he was in called We Need to Talk About Kevin,
Yeah,
where
very
he
good.
plays like a school shooter or
Yes,
something
he
like
does.
that.
Yeah,
and
very
it's,
good.
It's dark. Well,
Yeah.
they did an episode of Supernatural where they titled it We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
And it was
Oh,
not
so as long as it's tied to Supernatural, it's good.
Well, no.
Well, I agree with you.
But yeah, so Ezra Miller, it's weird because like I like Ezra Miller, but I'm not like, man, Ezra Miller.
Right.
Like he seems like he's the kind of guy that wouldn't be fun to meet, and apparently not.
He's an interesting actor to watch on screen. I always enjoy seeing him, because he never does anything straight. He always gives like a very kind of neat spin on a character. Sometimes it's eccentric, like Jared Leto's kind of eccentric. I'm thinking of in Dumbledore, where he's kind of squirrely and
Emo.
yeah, very
Yeah.
emo. And then compare that with say like with the Flash, where he's sort of like kind of this kid who just discovered these powers and he's all excited about it. So he is interesting. So I hope the WB or DC or whoever can figure this out.
I think they will.
I think he's done.
You do?
I think so. I think, just reading up on it too, apparently they're saying that there's been 10 calls since he's been on Hawaii of him, or at least someone that looks like him, doing some shady stuff as well, too. So, like, I definitely feel like there's something not mentally stable with him, and I think that's going to be DC's way to push him out. Unfortunately, because I did like him as the Flash.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be their way to push him out and find someone new, whoever that may be.
It has not been unheard of for them to remove an actor from a film after it's been shot and put somebody else in there. Now, this is a main character.
It would be
so
way
I don't know.
too much.
It might be too much. You know, if we had Grant Gustin's face CGI'd onto all these Ezra Millers in the film.
That's the big question. Now there's a big fan movement support for Grant Gustin to take over the main continuity
because
Flash.
that's what the fans wanted. 4 years ago when we got Ezra Miller?
Yeah, seriously.
But the problem is, and we ran into the same problem with Smallville and Tom Welling when Superman Returns was coming out. Everybody's like, no, just you have Superman already. I'd rather the Arrowverse do its thing, because the Arrowverse is dying. Like, it sucks. Like, even I've fallen off watching most of it. I'm like 19 episodes behind on everything. But for me, like, Grant Gustin is great, but I don't think he'd want the role. You know, Flash is going to end soon at some point, and you know,
I also feel like he's old, isn't he?
No, he's about our age, 30-ish.
But old to play like a young, not like young Flash,
right.
but a younger
The question
Flash.
would then always become, like, do they just restart their do they Flashpoint again? Do they? Because I mean, like, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The Flash TV show already did his greatest hits.
Yeah.
They did Flashpoint. They did Crisis on Infinite Earths. They did all these things.
I'm curious to see how much of the Flash movie has been completed.
All of it.
If you remember the rule.
So why not just like tweak the ending somehow, keep him in, and then you introduce a new Flash into it? Like, you introduce your next Flash as, like,
right.
You know,
if you can anoint, you must Flashpoint.
do you get it?
Nope.
Oh.
All right, and our next bit of news is the box office for Morbius.
Got you $1.
It opened up on the opening weekend with $39 million.
Not too bad.
Which is not bad. It's not good for a superhero franchise, though.
If it was 1998.
Yeah, like comparing it to Venom. Venom, I think, was close to $80 million. This one has a lot of stink surrounding it, so a lot of people stayed away. And here's one of the most disturbing things about it. On Friday, April 1st, which is pretty much its main opening day, it came out with $17.3 million. Now, traditionally, on a Saturday following that, grosses should go up because people have the whole day off. People plan on doing things on the weekend. History has shown us that the second day, that Saturday, grosses always go up. It actually dropped by 24% from Friday to Saturday. And then from Saturday to Sunday, it dropped 35%. Right now, there is a prediction that in this weekend, it's supposed to drop around 71% from its opening day, its opening weekend. By comparison, Batman v Superman dropped 67% from first to second weekend. So they're talking about a steep, and that's one of the steepest for a superhero tentpole movie. They're saying that this is going to be even worse. So Morbius,
I mean, it beat its projected. Its projected was supposed to be 33. It did 39.
Correct.
Currently, right now, it's sitting at 102, I think. 102, 103.
That's probably total worldwide.
Yeah, total worldwide box office.
Yeah.
Right here, 102.6 with the budget at 75 million. So it made $30 million almost.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's
for a movie that was that.
Yeah. And for us,
surprising.
we're like, that's great. $30 million. But for a studio who's trying to create a trilogy, because also remember this, that sequels never earn as much as their originals.
Correct.
And so that does not, it's not a good business model to go forward with a sequel for this. And I think my fingers are crossed that we shouldn't go forward with a sequel anyway.
I wouldn't mind seeing the character again.
Yes.
But or scratch that. If they want to do a sequel, they need to do a better script. They need and I hate to say it, they need a better director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have no problem seeing the character. It sucks when you see a decent character in a crappy movie.
Yeah.
Which I think, tying into what we're talking about today, I would say I would bet money we get Morbius in Blade.
Which is fine. I think we're all okay with that. We just don't want more of this.
I also think that when they introduce Blade and vampires proper to the MCU, I hope the vampires are a little bit different and Morbius stands out as a different kind of vampire.
On a couple related notes, the memes have just gone crazy about Morbius over the week. I saw one that it showed a car that had been broken into, and it said, "Everyone be careful out there. I had 2 tickets to Morbius sitting in my car. Somebody just broke in and put 4 more in there." I saw things, pictures of empty theaters, and sort of the running joke is now that Morbius is the greatest superhero movie that has ever been made ever. It's going to get all the money and all the awards, and they're just. Did you see the tweet with Tyrese?
No.
Okay, so what happened was somebody made a fake tweet of Martin Scorsese standing in front of a Morbius poster. And with a quote from Martin Scorsese, a made-up one that said, like, "I just want to say I was wrong about superhero movies. I just saw Morbius, and it really is fantastic. I great work from." And Tyrese saw that and thought it was real, and tweeted about, "I can't believe this is the greatest moment of my life that Martin Scorsese has said great things about." Oh, Tyrese.
Earn that paycheck, Tyrese.
Yeah,
Earn that
right?
paycheck, Tyrese.
I swear he's not just a pretty face.
Yeah.
They did a pitch meeting for Morbius, and it's hilarious.
Oh, I gotta see it.
It's rough.
Oh, so that wraps up my news. Anything you wanted to add or anything more?
No news is good news.
I was going to say, I think that wraps us up for the news. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to kick off our show. Paul's going to give a little rundown, brief history of the character Blade.
I am?
Yes, you are, sir.
Man, I wasn't ready at all. Just kidding. So Blade was introduced as a supporting character in Marvel Comics' The Tomb of Dracula, July of 1973. So he's a more recent character, which is strange when recent characters are from the 70s on.
Right. Yeah.
But, people tend to forget. Batman, Superman, Zatara. I didn't even know this. You know Zatara, the father of Zatanna?
No.
You know Zatanna from
Right, Zatanna, I know.
Her father was introduced the same year as Superman in a different comic book series.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that. I recently learned that.
I'd also like to add that 1/3 of this show actually remembers the 70s.
That's fine, because, we weren't alive.
I don't remember anything.
I don't remember anything from the 70s at all. Just what I see in the Austin Powers movies. The 70s and the 80s. But so originally, Blade had no supernatural powers. The only thing he had was an immunity to vampire bites because of his mother being, I believe, a vampire. Or there was something along the lines of a genetic disorder. But yeah, originally he had no powers. And it was an enzyme in his bloodstream that was from his mother being bitten by a vampire. So there are a lot of different interpretations. Some are, father was a vampire, mother was a human, they had a baby. So there's that version. There's the mother was attacked while giving birth or pregnant version. So usually it involves some sort of vampire father or attacker and a human mother. And his mother was bitten as either she was giving birth or, while she was pregnant. And Blade came out, he was able to just resist vampire bites. It wasn't until an encounter with our favorite vampire, Morbius, the living vampire, that he got, in comic book continuity, he got his powers, which included all the typical super strength, super speed, resistance to all sorts of things. So that's how Blade got started in the comics. In the film series, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, Blade was... his mother was attacked while she was giving birth, basically, and he was born a half human, half vampire, the Daywalker. All their strengths, none of their weaknesses, type thing. And Blade is also considered one of the best martial artists in the Marvel universe. Very capable, swords, weapons, very aggressive type character. And I do believe he was part of the Midnight Suns for a while. So he's worked with Ghost Rider, probably Moon Knight, all these different characters.
Oh, he has done with Moon Knight, because that was actually something this week I was thinking about when watching Moon Knight. I'm like, oh, Blade would really fit well into this universe.
Which is funny because Moon Knight just had its second episode at the time of this recording, and they're really leaning into some of the supernatural stuff with it. So I would not be surprised if Blade doesn't cameo.
We'll get Sam and Dean.
No. Different supernatural.
Oh.
But I would be totally okay with either a cameo from Ghost Rider or or Blade and Moon Knight. That'd be a lot of fun because Ghost Rider was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they did a really good job with him, surprisingly, considering Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of...
Yeah.
I feel like we won't. Because I feel like with these Disney Plus shows, they're just keeping it to, like, characters we know or, like, that actually, like, go hand in hand with
Well, I'd
the main
argue
one.
they introduced Madam Hydra in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then they had her in the movie.
I would also argue they introduced Echo in Hawkeye.
Yeah, but they're just going to have her get her own show.
Oh.
Yeah, Echo's not getting in the movie. She's getting her own show.
I see what you mean then.
Yeah. But no, I wouldn't be surprised because they did have Mahershala Ali do a voice cameo for Eternals.
Yeah.
Which we forget about because
Was that the one good part of Eternals?
No, the credits were. No, the first Marvel sex scene was.
All right, I will fully concede here. I oversold the Eternals.
You didn't oversell the Eternals.
Everyone did.
You sold Chloe Zhao, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because I have no problem with the direction of that movie. It's just not a good movie.
Yeah,
it's an example of you can get a great director, but when you're really locked into the Marvel formula, the Marvel formula is always its strongest when they're first introducing characters.
Yes.
They're very good at reading where a character goes and adjusting accordingly then. Like, look at Thor. Thor's a perfect example. Or Captain America. But, yeah, Marvel, with their formula for that first movie, it's
tight. It's
very tight.
Organized. Yeah, I The Eternals is a very pretty movie, and I like that they were trying something new, but, yeah, I don't know if I would watch it again.
Yeah. But getting back to Blade, my first time interacting with Blade, not on a personal level because I don't really know him.
Really?
I don't think you would want to really interact with him.
Yeah, probably not. Was
especially after that third movie.
Oh yeah.
Was Spider-Man the Animated Series. Like a lot of characters that I've learned about, I first saw them in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Same with Morbius. I think I mentioned it last week. But Blade was actually introduced, and they were able to get around their censorship quite a bit with Blade. Same thing. He's a vampire hybrid, but in this version, his mother, his father was a vampire, his mother wasn't. She does become a vampire, though, and, like, she's his main antagonist, which happens a lot. And even in the movie, they reference it. But he's got, like, a laser sword. He drives around on a motorcycle. Like, so 90s. Perfect 90s character. But, yeah, and they introduced Whistler in that continuity, too.
You think we're going to get him in Doctor Strange?
Blade?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Probably not Wesley Snipes, but...
You know what? Something that didn't occur to me
Ali.
until you started talking about it. Why is he called Blade?
That's just the name he took.
Well, I looked it up, and it said his lust for getting revenge on Dracula led Brooks to China with a crew of vampire hunters, and the group began to call him Blade thanks to his proficiency with bladed weapons.
Yep. His real name's Eric. Watch out.
Yeah. Eric Brooks.
Eric Cross.
So...
Awesome. But that's going to kind of wrap us up for our beginning segment. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll talk some movies. But first, a quick commercial break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Raise Energy Drinks from Rep Sports. Whether you're trying to crush your afternoon workout or just need a little extra pick-me-up, Raise Energy is just the boost that you're going to need. So if you go to repsports.com and any product that you order, enter the code MISFIT89 at checkout to receive 15% off. Anything that you guys buy from that store helps our network grow, and we fully appreciate everything you guys do. That's MISFIT89 at checkout, repsports.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had a nice commercial break. So we're going to jump right into things. So again, we're going to kick things off. Really, the main focus is going to be talking about Blade, the first movie. We'll touch a little bit on the second movie and then Blade Trinity as well, even though that one was trash. But basically, we get introduced to Blade, the character, via the screen back in 1998. So this movie is coming up on its 24th anniversary. What are some of our initial thoughts to Blade? Rob.
So I rewatched it this week, and I remember when I first watched it, I was kind of meh about it. But I have to say, I enjoyed it a lot more. It holds up a lot better than I thought it was going to, and I actually enjoyed it. It's not a perfect movie. It's got tons and tons of flaws, and it's a little dated. It is very much a 90s movie, which I'll go through that because I as I was watching it, I'm like, okay, that's a 90s trope, that's a 90s thing, but it's enjoyable. Like, I have to say, for something that came out 10 years before Iron Man, it's impressive that they were laying some good groundwork for what a superhero universe looks like. So I would at this point, I'm still recommending Blade for Wesley Snipes especially, but also just it's a fun movie. It's got its moments.
Yeah. Paul?
I wasn't allowed to watch this as a kid. Yeah, fun fact. So I remember this movie was on. All right, here we go. You ready? In Sears at the mall where they have TVs.
Yep.
And they would show movies. The first time I ever saw this was, or any part of it was there. And I was like, what year is, what did you say?
This was 98 it came out.
So I was about 10-ish. And of course it's the scene at the very end when all of the vampires are getting like electrocuted and like one guy's got like drool coming out of his mouth and they're all dying viciously in vampire bats. And I was like, this movie's not for me. A little kid. So I didn't see it for quite some time, but this movie is, I love this movie. It holds up surprisingly well. There's some 90s tropes, the long trench coats and all that stuff. Like there are some moments, but for the most part, I think this movie benefits by the fact it doesn't have too many things that date it. Like, it's hard watching a movie where they rely on technology from the 90s and you're watching it and you're trying to explain to somebody in 2020 who's never seen it. They're like, no, this is a really good movie.
Yeah, right?
Why don't they just call for help? They needed to find a payphone.
What's that?
Yeah.
Like when they're sending emergency faxes to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to get that fax done. But so for me, this movie and even the sequel, I love Blade 2. I'll defend Blade 2 all day long. I think it's a solid movie. Blade Trinity, when I was younger and during the same time as like Dane Cook was popular, like that movie was fine.
Yeah.
But in rewatching Blade Trinity, it's like, this is cringy. And Ryan Reynolds is just trying his best.
He really is.
Yeah.
Because say what you will about Ryan Reynolds, he throws himself completely into his roles, and yeah, he does play Ryan Reynolds.
Absolutely.
In all of his movies, but that was like Deadpool before Deadpool for him.
Oh, yeah.
You?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I like, just to kind of reiterate what you guys have been saying, this movie still holds its own. This is a movie I could watch, anytime. Again, you can definitely tell it's from the 90s. All the different tropes, like we said, especially the raving. The rave clubs.
You don't go to blood raves?
Blood raves.
But like, that's so like 90s, early 2000s, just raves and everything. But
you ever been to a rave?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
What?
Not a blood rave.
No.
Not a blood rave.
Oh, not
definitely
a blood rave.
not a blood rave. I can tell you that much. But yeah, I mean, again, you could tell it's from the 90s based off of the technology that was used to make the movie as well.
Yes,
CGI
but it's
is
got
rough.
It's got well-intentioned
Yes.
CGI though.
'Cause that's the
I
thing,
actually wrote that phrase down.
Because that's the thing. Like back in '98, CGI was what, like a year, 2 years old. Like no one really knew how to use it really to the extent.
Fun fact for your fanny
the
pack.
fanny pack.
For my fan fact.
What was the first movie to have CGI in it?
Tron.
No, Tron did not have CGI. Tron colored over their thing with
Star Wars.
Tron again.
no. Star Wars was all miniatures.
I know. I was just
You're
trying
not.
to name.
I'll give you a
something.
hint. 1986.
Is a year.
I was not even born.
Actually, I think it was 1984.
I still was not born.
Young Sherlock Holmes was
Interesting.
the very first CGI movie because there's a moment where a character has is poisoned and he's starting to see things. He's a priest in the church, and one of the stained glass, like the knight from the stained glass,
I've
jumps
seen
out.
that.
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
the
that.
very first
Yeah,
use
I've
of
seen that.
CGI in a
Huh. All right, so it was around for like 10 years then. At that
it's
point,
still
but
it still
Yeah.
wasn't good. They hadn't perfected it
But
yet.
what blows my mind is we had Jurassic Park by then. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy to think CGI is one of those things where when you have good CGI, it's awesome. Then even movies like huge blockbuster movies like Avengers: Infinity War, the shot where the Hulkbuster armor opens up and it's just his head
Yeah.
floating there, you're like,
Yeah.
That's a little
it's jarring.
goofy.
But this movie, the CGI really doesn't happen to the end. And it's like, because this movie, for the most part, goes for the more realistic type stuff, with the only exception is the vampires do turn to dust, which is like, this was at the same time Buffy was really popular,
Yeah.
and they did the same thing.
That's true.
Do you know why they did it in Buffy? Why they turned the
No.
vampires to dust? Because they didn't want to have to explain every week why this town just had random bodies lying around. Because
Makes sense.
If you watch the original Buffy movie, Like those vampires don't turn to dust; they just lie there and they die.
Oh, that's true. I remember
Paul Rubens
Paul
does like
Rubens.
a 44-minute, But yeah, so for the TV show, they're like, how do we explain why there's not
That
just
makes sense,
hundreds
yeah.
of bodies lying around this town?
For every episode, did someone? I've never seen Buffy. I saw the movie, but in the episodes, did people always die?
There was a lot of death.
I was
in
going to
Buffy.
say, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, I love that show. I have the whole series if you ever want to borrow it.
I might. Actually.
Yeah, it is that still holds up.
Yeah.
Can I read my list of why this is a '90s movie?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Sure.
He's the host.
I was just putting in my vote. I thought this was a democracy.
Okay, there.
Dictatorship.
Real quick, signs that this is a '90s movie: monochromatic opening credits that are the same sized font as the title.
Fair.
A producer named Joey Calamari. I don't know if you noticed.
It made me hungry.
You know what? And I real quick, I did some research on who Joey Calamari is. He's only did 4 things, and one of them was the X-Men cartoon and the original Captain America movie from 1990.
Nice.
Other signs it's a 90s movie. Steven?
With his electronic blue cigarettes.
Does he? I didn't even notice.
No, but Steven Dorff was like a really big proponent. Like I remember just seeing thousands of commercials of him
Really?
doing these electric cigarettes.
Yeah.
And people were like, those won't ever take off.
He was an indie star mostly, and it was a surprise that he did this.
Yeah.
Peroxide. Tracy Lords.
Oh, God.
Wesley Snipes' haircut.
Yep.
Yeah.
And finally, Donald Logue as an action star.
Yeah.
Donald Logue, do you know I don't know if you remember, Donald Logue got his start on MTV doing commercials as a cab driver. And people just picked up on him and started putting him in action movies for some reason. So that's how I knew it was
Because he
a
had
90s
that
movie.
look,
Yeah, he did.
you know? Especially back in the day. You know,
he was a very good henchman.
yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good henchman.
good sidekick.
Yeah. I got
But-
2 hands now, Blade.
But you know, we do have to give this movie credit. It is what started, in my opinion, the MCU with its success that it had. I mean, it grossed like $100 million. You know, like it was its net alone. You know, in just this movie, it was the second MCU movie to come out.
This is
Like theatrically
Why,
wide
what was
release.
his first?
You mean
Howard
Marvel.
the Duck.
You mean Marvel.
Marvel.
You said MCU.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
yes.
kind of MCU-ish.
Same
I'm
kind of.
very curious to see if Multiverse of Madness makes any sort of reference to this movie. Because Snipes has said more than once he would come back to the role. Granted, he was the worst in Blade Trinity. Like,
Yeah.
you hear horror stories about how he behaved on set with, Patton Oswalt is very honest about it. Like he'll do, because I always forget he's in the movie.
Wait, I forget. When is he in the movie?
He's one of the Night Stalkers. He's like the tech guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very awkward in it because it's Patton Oswalt and I love him.
He's great.
But I would not be surprised if in Multiverse of Madness there's some sort of reference to him or some sort of reference. Also,
There has to be because they're both Nightwalkers, aren't they? Weren't they in Nightwalkers together?
Night Stalkers.
Night Stalkers, Nightwalkers, the same thing.
Is it, though?
Yes, because Stalkers walk.
No, Midnight.
point.
Wait, are you talking about the Midnight Suns or the Night Stalkers?
Night Stalkers.
don't
No,
walk,
the Night
they
Stalkers
stalk.
was more like just a pure anti-vampire group. I don't think Doctor Strange was ever in it.
Oh, I thought he was.
No. Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, right?
But yeah, I'd be very curious to see, because also I do have a theory, and I want to throw this out there because I was thinking more on it. Because
Moron.
yeah, that's fair. That's yeah,
What?
theme of the episode. But so we watched Morbius obviously last week, and mild spoilers. At the end, Adrian Toomes is transported to our world via the same space or the same multiverse,
The
like
rip.
Rip. I have a theory that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is actually going to explain that instead. That something else happened,
nice.
and that's why Venom got transported. Like all these things happened, and so that's just a theory because
Doctor Strange is just going to be a movie about explanations.
Doctor Strange in the Exposition of Madness.
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if in Doctor Strange we do get at least some sort of reference to this movie or even vampires in general.
Yeah.
Because I think what was it? Loki referenced vampires. I think.
He might have, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously Mahershala Ali was the voice cameo in Eternals.
I think what's great about Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness is that we are less than a month out from it, and how much do we actually know about this movie? Like so little.
We know that we have Doctor Strange in it. We know we have another Doctor Strange in it.
Patrick Stewart.
And I think they just released the runtime. I think it's coming in at like 2 hours 6 minutes.
Something like
which
that.
is
Oh my God,
not
that's
that
so
long.
No.
I need a short S movie.
Imagine
For my short attention span, yes.
imagine if Morbius was a 3-hour movie. But with not better quality.
Same quality. They didn't cut anything out. But why don't we talked about the cast slightly, but let's do a little dive into Wesley Snipes.
Okay.
That sounds uncomfortable.
Why?
I don't want to dive into Wesley.
He doesn't want to dive into his taxes.
Wow. Well
Clap
done.
for Ronnie.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
That's how you know you're a 90s star. No.
Taxes? I don't even know taxes.
I saw an interview with Wesley Snipes when this must have been like right after Blade was, or as they were filming, and they're interviewing him, and he's in the Blade outfit, but he's doing Blade in the interview too, and it's so uncomfortable. He actually refers to Wesley Snipes as Wesley, and it's just so uncomfortable because he didn't want to break character.
Yeah. He's an interesting character, Wesley Snipes.
Well, the best was in Expendables 2, I think.
Yeah.
They rescue him, and one of them asks, "Why were you in prison?" And he says, "Tax evasion." Because it was right after he got released.
really?
Yeah.
But minus the tax evasion,
Okay.
how do we feel about his portrayal as Eric Brooks / Blade?
So I really like Wesley Snipes, and also I give him kudos because he is a martial artist. He does train very actively. I think he's like a 6th-degree black belt or something.
Wow.
Yeah, he's up there, and you could tell that it's him doing a lot of the fight scenes. Sometimes the fight scenes are very strangely edited, and a lot of hand motion, like a lot of like very strange, just the way that he fights sometimes.
They're probably. I wonder if they're cutting out frames from
to make it seem faster.
To make it seem faster.
Which I'm fine with because again, it's showing that he's better than a human without having to go crazy CGI.
Just because you brought up his martial arts, I got it right here.
Ooh.
I'll hit it.
He's a 5th Dan black belt in Shotokan Karate and a 2nd Dan black belt in Hapkido.
Oh, okay.
So he knows his stuff.
I know that when they were doing the movie and putting the script together, that he advocated for a lot of martial arts for it. Like he really wanted that to be a part of the script, and you can see it in there with him doing it. So that is really cool to see that he knows.
I mean,
his stuff.
says that he's been training in martial arts since he was 12.
Yeah.
So
I think the only time that I really don't enjoy him is when he tries to make awkward jokes. Like there's the line at the end where right before he kills Frost, he's like, "Some mother lovers are always trying to ice skate uphill." Like what?
I like that line. I'm sorry.
It's so jarring though.
The history of that line is that David Goyer asked him when they were going over the script, "What do you think of Deacon Frost?" And Wesley Snipes said that, and David Goyer is like, "I love that. I'm putting it into the script."
That doesn't make it better.
Yeah, but he forces comedy when comedy doesn't need to be involved at all, or even forced. I think is like you said, this was only downfall. I think like it was near perfect casting. To have Wesley Snipes in there. He just brought a different element to it because of his martial arts background as well. I mean, back then, Wesley Snipes was the man.
Oh, yeah. Passenger 57 was 5 years before this, I think.
You had White Man Can't Jump.
Oh, 96,
I mean, like, he was just on a roll. He was, like, the number one. He was, you know what he was? He was the Will Smith before Will Smith.
And he seems to be going. And Will Smith seems to be going that same trajectory.
Knock on wood.
Gonna go a whole week.
That was
without.
a big slap in the face.
Wow, Ronnie's on. He is in fuego today.
But what were your thoughts about Wesley?
I loved Wesley in this. I love a movie where it's very clear the actor is enjoying being that person, and you could see it in Wesley that everything he does, he's living his best life as Blade. He is it, as the kids say nowadays, and he just. I love the stoicism he brings to the role. I
Mm-hmm.
love the intensity. Like, I'm just thinking of that moment where Whistler injects him with the serum, and he's just sitting in that chair, just like, "Grah!" Like and I was actually worried about Wesley Snipes. I'm like, he's gonna like pop an eyeball or a vein or something like that.
Yeah.
He was trying so hard. He's a great actor, and I don't think he gets enough attention. I wonder though if his time has passed. I mean, it would be great to see someone like, Tarantino bring him back, the way Tarantino does with a lot of actors that have been past their prime.
Yeah.
I think Wesley would be perfect for something like that. I don't know if he would be good as Blade again, but
I think he'd be a great Whistler.
Yeah.
yeah, that
Or-
would be good.
Or even better, the vampire that killed his mother.
Oh, that would be neat. Yeah.
I think they could, if they want to bring Wesley Snipes back, they can. But the MCU isn't really as known for it. DC does it a lot,
Yeah.
where they bring back former actors as new
sure.
characters, especially on the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
I mean, they made the '90s Flash canon.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a DC play, but I think it'd be a little jarring to see Wesley Snipes in a Blade property, not as Blade.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool, like you said, bring him in as like Whistler and be Mahershala Ali's Whistler, like mentor, almost. I think that would be a cool concept to have him back.
All right, you ready? I'm gonna pull a Rob. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I don't even know what that means.
You'll find out, I guess.
Are vampires in this magical?
All right, let's think. So first of all, why do you ask that?
Because there's a giant plot hole about it, and I like asking questions that nobody's prepared for. Throwback to Morbius.
So what's the plot hole?
Okay, so in this movie, I had the answer already.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to make it fun. So in this movie, they established that these vampires are all it's a genetic disorder. It is curable, it's treatable, it's curable to a
Okay.
point. And they literally say, like, crosses don't work, holy water doesn't
Right.
do this. They're literally they have a gene disorder. It's an infection.
Are they mutants?
So, but here's the question then.
Okay.
At the end, they specifically use a magic ritual to create a vampire god,
That's true.
to the point where they turn into CGI vampire things, fly out of people's mouths, and then he absorbs them all. And yeah, magic.
Now, maybe they're not necessarily magic,
Okay.
but I mean, just like if there was a magic book of spells in front of us and we just follow the directions, we would be able to create whatever we were trying to, right?
Which
Or
is it.
summon something we were trying to summon.
Which is a teaser for our next episode where we'll be looking at Evil Dead 2.
But so, like, I wonder if it's something like that where it's like you can create the almighty pyre, to like be the
Mighty pyre.
yeah,
What is
a
that?
pyre, vampire.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were thinking like pyre, Pyre, like as in,
Oh.
like
Funeral.
funeral pyre. Okay. I'm thinking about it now that you bring it up. I don't see, and you also said about Moon Knight and magic too. I think I don't see that in my brain as magic. I see that as folklore and like mythology. So I don't see mythology as, maybe that's because I'm an English teacher, but I don't see mythology as magic. I see it as more like historical mysticism.
Which I get and I totally agree
Yeah.
with. It's the only challenge I have is they clearly create separate lines. They're like, vampires are not, they're science based,
Right.
Yeah.
But then they introduce this huge level of magic into it.
Yeah, because they've got the text, the old
Yeah.
text, and everything.
And again, that's fine. Like if if there's a vampire Bible, as they refer to it as
Right.
such, cool. I mean, vampires in this continuity have been around for millions of years, so they're going to have historical records,
Yeah.
and they're
Yeah.
going to be exaggerated, just like our own historical records. But it was always jarring for me that science vampires,
Yeah.
like Morbius is a science vampire. He's
Right.
created by science, not so much a traditional vampire bite. Then they establish that there is magic, it does exist, and here it is. So
I
It
wonder
was
if they were
always just-
trying to kind of create a multiverse almost, where it's like we have the science vampires or biological vampires, whatever you want to call them. But then there's also other vampires that are worse than us that are magical. You get bit by it and now you are. It's not a blood disorder.
yeah, it's very weird. And also,
Yeah.
another question I have about this movie is they established that the council of like the head vampires are all pure blood vampires, as they call them. They're born vampires.
Mm-hmm.
If vampires are immortal, how do they age?
They're not immortal.
Well, see, oh, wait, they don't age. Doesn't Udo Kier say that at one point that like Blade ages, but the others don't?
But this is
So
the thing.
how are you
So if I
born?
was born, I'm a baby.
Right. So we
So
should have
wouldn't I
baby
be a baby?
vampires. Good
Yes.
point. All right. Yes. All right.
Or they age until a certain age, and then
Which
and
would
then
be fine.
they stop. Like look at
Say Twilight, I dare you.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the name. I could not think of the name, but yes, think of Twilight maybe.
Which is fine. Just if I was an immortal vampire, because they're all like old men.
Right.
Imagine being stuck at 46 just for the rest of eternity. Like
I don't
stop me
think it's
Well,
that bad.
Also, I guess
for all of eternity.
also immortal
kinda
does
like
not
where
mean
I'm
you
at.
can't age.
All
You can still
yeah, sure.
age, you just can never die because of your age.
Okay, all right.
I-
It's still strange.
Back to the magic though part. And here, I don't have an answer, so there's no correct answer for this.
Bad
Do
script
you
writing.
feel
All the
that Christ's death and resurrection is magic?
I'm not touching that one. I'm not touching
Because
that
well,
one.
that's my point here.
Are
is
you
that-
bringing this up because Easter's around the corner?
That's my point, is because I always kind of felt that this thing that was going on was more of a faith-based thing
I
in,
have
in
your answer.
religion. Oh, go ahead.
It all depends on the person you're asking.
Okay.
Because just like with anything, different viewpoints, different things,
Yeah.
and different meanings.
Because I think that's with Moon
Yeah.
Knight. I don't really see that as magic so much as I do like faith and religion.
Which part?
The whole like the Avatar stuff.
Like
Oh
how
no!
he's-
So
yeah.
like in Moon Knight, in the comics, he
Yeah.
is an avatar.
Right.
But they play around with the idea early on that he may just be crazy. But then they do
Yeah.
establish that he is an avatar for
Okay.
Khonshu.
Yeah, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Khonshu?
My issue in the Moon Knight TV show is that he has magical armor that just
Yes, that is.
because in
I'll
the
give you
comic
that.
in the comics he's literally just rich.
Yeah.
And a really good fighter. And I hate the idea of giving a character like Moon Knight magical armor because then it's almost like the Power Rangers, how they can fight when
Yeah.
they wear their outfits.
It says summon the suit.
Yeah. So if they say it's actually just technology, like a pseudo Iron Man nanotech thing,
Right.
but it doesn't seem like
Okay.
that's the case.
All right, let's move our conversation along. So we talked about some plot holes that we had with the movie and some questions and everything. What is something that stands out to you in this movie, Paul?
The opening scene. It is still incredible. You know, the blood starts going, and this poor guy's like, "What did I just get myself into?" Because he got picked up by a vampire, and it was a first establishment of their culture because. In traditional vampire stories, they tend to be a little bit more Victorian, like very like proper and posh.
Yeah.
You have like your underworld where it shows that the vampires have like a nice hierarchy and they enjoy being immortal. Or what's another good one? Interview with the Vampire. They got the frills and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But for this, if I was immortal, I'd party too. Like
Yeah.
if there was no consequences. But then the shot of Blade just appearing and everybody else is covered in blood, but he's just like so like pristine and clean and ready to just like throw down. It established everything you needed to know about that character by him just standing there and how scared they were of him.
Yeah.
And that he goes to town.
Yeah.
And he saves the guy too. Like he's about to kill him, but he checks him. He's like, "Nope, you're good. Bye."
Yeah.
And you also that in that moment you learn that he's not there to help people. He's there to just kill vampires.
Yeah.
Helping people is just a happy accident. So that opening scene always gets me.
What about you, Rob?
I found every time when I was watching the movie that certain scenes would come up where it was very clear that there is a lack of funding in the sanitation department in their city because there is so much blowing newspaper everywhere in this. Like I laughed every time they showed a street. There's like whoosh, this newspaper everywhere, and I'm like, that's hysterical. No, in all seriousness, I like the tone of the film because it is a mix for me of a superhero movie, a Western, and a blaxploitation film from the 70s. Like it's that really cool combination of all three, and they pull it off. Like it's the two characters facing down each other over time. You've got the hyped up 70s, black superhero character with the female black sidekick that are just, sticking it to the man and everything. Like it's fun, and so any moment where it invoked all three of those those moments of tone really did it for me. And also the movie just has so many like WTF moments, like when they come across Pearl. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Character from the comics.
Is it really?
I think so, yeah.
Like there were so many great moments where I didn't expect that something happened and it would happen. Like all of a sudden they decide to bring Udo Kier's character to the beach and watch him explode. Or when he takes the little girl and he's holding her and, so that way Blade doesn't attack him. Like little moments like that where I didn't expect is what did it for me. How about you, Ronnie?
I'm going to agree with Paul. I think, again, the opening scene kind of, yeah, I guess you could say scene, but it's not really just a scene. I think it's just kind of was like, oh, so this is what we're getting ourselves into with this movie. And then it sets the tone and it maintains and keeps that tone throughout the whole movie, I think was great. And then as a martial artist himself, I do love the fights in all three movies, with the third one a little bit less, but I do love the fight sequences and everything that we do get throughout this movie in particular, but all three in this trilogy, though.
I just remembered another moment. This is, I think, hands down my favorite moment.
Uh-oh.
I forget what fight scene it is, but there's one part where he rips out a guy's throat and then throws it at another guy. That was just so bonkers to me.
Yeah.
I think it was when he's storming in, either when he's storming in at the end or when they first are in the
I think it is at the end. I think it is at the end.
Probably, yeah.
All right. Want to do some Star City ratings?
Sure.
Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. I'm going to give this movie a 4. It is a solid superhero flick. It still holds up. Plot holes aside, it's still a good time. And if you're a comic book fan, it's like Ronnie said, this movie, a lot of people credit X-Men for really starting the comic book craze. This movie was first. This movie was the first really successful comic book movie of the 90s, and then it definitely leads into the creation of the MCU and the DCEU.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rob?
I am going to go 3.5 because it's not perfect. It's got its flaws, but it's still a lot of fun. That ending is just a little like. Are you familiar with the original ending
with Morbius?
A little bit with Morbius.
With the tornado.
With the tornado of blob blood.
The thing.
Yeah. So there was supposed to be, and if you look it up on YouTube, you can actually watch it.
It's
where
rough.
It is. Deacon Frost, instead of fusing back together, becomes a giant tornado of blood, and then he I don't know. Wesley Snipes does. He throws the vampire cure into it or something like that. It's weird. And then Michael Morbius shows up on a rooftop at the very end.
Yeah.
But there was even another original ending that they were going to go with, where it was that the vampires win, and then the sequel was going, and they actually bathe the entire city in this blood, and they all become vampires, and now Blood and what's her name has to fight all of them. Karen, is that it?
Dr. Karen Jensen.
And they didn't go with that. So that's interesting too. But it's like I said, the ending, I think they really didn't know how to stick the landing at the end. So it's an okay ending, but there are so many just super cool moments of Blade being awesome that it's don't get me wrong, I'm definitely recommending it, but I'm saying 3.5 just because of that.
Falls apart at the end a little.
Yeah. See, for me, this is a tough one because I'm trying to think of my score. Even though you guys were just talking for 2.5, 3 minutes, I'm still torn as to what I want to give this, just because of Blade 2.
Go on.
So, in my opinion, both movies are equal, I would say. But for me, I'm like, which one am I going to score what? And then that determines when I'm going to score the other one. I might give this a 3.75 because I can't make a decision between 3.5 and 4.
1/8.
Yeah, but 3.5, it can be a 4 though, in my opinion, for this movie.
That second movie has the benefit of Guillermo del Toro directing it.
Yes.
This guy,
and a better plot.
Yeah.
Yep.
The director from this is Stephen Norrington. He only ever directed 4 movies, and I looked at trailers from his other movies, and they're all kind of the same feel as this. And what I also noticed in all of his movies, he has an extreme leather fetish. And he
That's
loves
funny.
the sound of creaking leather.
Yeah. But speaking of Blade 2, because let's just quickly go through Blade 2 and Blade Trinity, especially Blade Trinity, because I feel like we're all in agreement with how we feel about Blade Trinity. Mm-hmm. So let's just spend like a couple minutes on Blade 2. So Blade 2, we get the return of Wesley Snipes and Whistler. That's really it.
Which
I
was
want to
weird
say,
considering Whistler, quote unquote, kills himself in the first movie.
yeah,
But we never actually see it.
Right.
We just
Yeah.
hear the noise.
yeah.
So which is stupid, but it still gives them an
Yeah.
out.
But this one you got again. It's kind of like a product of its time. 2002. It's another. This movie made another $100 million. Mm-hmm. It's. To me, this is a coin flip between Blade and Blade 2 as to which one's better. Some have little things that are a little bit better in one that aren't as strong in the other one and everything. But, I mean, you have, like we said, Wesley Snipes and Chris Christopherson returning. We got Ron Perlman in here, Norman Reedus, so...
it's a stat cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, for that time, it's a stat cast. Because now, like...
Yeah.
All these people in this movie nowadays, people are like, who's that? I've never heard of them.
Guillermo del Toro has his group, and it's
Yeah.
that same group that he brought to Hellboy, and he likes working with those people, and you see a lot of them in here. And I have to say, if you're a Guillermo del Toro fan or a completist, this is definitely should be on there because there's some really cool creature work in this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get some really good work with the new vampires in it. I forget, they have an actual name, but I forget. The Reapers. That's what they're called.
Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. You get some great character work with the Reapers. The CGI gets a little wonky at certain points. There are two really wonky CGI scenes, and they're both involving Blade fighting somebody where they CGI the whole body. And this was during the real rubbery looking phase of CGI, where when they try to do a body, movies like The Matrix Reloaded, the Spider-Man franchise was also famous for it, where when you were seeing it, what was supposed to be a real person, but it was CGI, like, it just looked rough.
Yeah. This was a movie of the fun nicknames.
Oh, yeah, a lot of fun nicknames in this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got Scud, Chupa, Snowman, Lighthammer, Priest, Rush. Like, it was just...
What would your vampire name be, Ronnie?
Ooh.
Muscles.
I'll take it.
Mine would be Hungry Hippo. Aww. Womp womp.
That one's good, too.
I know, but it would have been mean if I called you it.
No, it wouldn't have
What
been.
would be mine? Haircut?
Yeah.
Haircut. Haircut. Or hair.
Elvis.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'm looking up when I saw this. It's been 6 years since I've seen it,
Oh,
so I don't remember it at all.
I was like, you can look that up.
Oh, because I keep track of everything.
Oh,
watched.
okay.
It
I was like, it
yeah.
came out 20 years ago. Actually,
I saw it in 2016 for the first
yeah,
time.
March 22nd, 2002. So it's
20. Oh, dang. We
20
should have done a
years?
whole episode for it.
yeah.
Happy anniversary,
Happy
Blade 2.
anniversary, Blade 2. Anything else we want to talk about before we do a Star City rating for Blade 2? Any important things about Blade 2 other than it's pretty much the
it does
same
it better.
movie?
I think
it does it better.
It looks more timeless. Mm-hmm. Like the other one is very clearly, like we said, a '90s movie, whereas this one could exist, and that's Del Toro. He tends to do that, so he
doesn't kind of give it its normal.
Yeah.
This is the '90s. This is the early 2000s looks.
Yeah.
He's like, no, this is my look.
Yeah, Del Toro's got his own aesthetic, and,
Yeah.
and you could see it here.
Yeah. Star City rating, Rob.
I'm going to just trust what I wrote down 6 years ago, and I have 3.5 written down here because I actually do rate things on IMDb, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. So I will go 3.5 just because.
So same as Blade.
Yeah, I see. The thing though is that Blade improved for me on this second viewing, so I'm wondering if Blade 2 will improve for me on the second viewing too. And so it could even go up to like a, as you would say, a 3.75.
I'm gonna give this movie a 4. I think it's slightly better than the first one, which is kind of surprising. A lot of times the sequel is equal or worse than the first one in most cases, but I think this one's slightly better. This is why I'm kind of stuck on that 4. This is a 4, while like I said with Blade it's like 3.5 to a 4. So like Paul said, it's the same kind of movie but just a little bit better executed.
I'm also going to just stick with my 4. I think Blade and Blade 2 are so like in line with each other. I will say Blade 2 has the better script, but I think Blade is more memorable. Blade 2 also came out at a time where a lot of the same kind of looking movies were. Like, I think the guy who plays the main Reaper also plays the bad guy in Hellboy. Same actor.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Or not Hellboy, the second one, the Golden Army. Yeah, it's the same guy who plays Nuatu, whatever his name is. But this movie definitely has its own look. It has its own unique aesthetic. It's very good. It ends on a very dour note, like where he's like finally like the vampire girl like dies in his arms, and like it was interesting, and I think it added a lot more depth to the entire vampire world, because basically he's working with the vampires in the second one.
Yeah.
So I think we get a chance to kind of learn a little bit more about them, and they're not necessarily evil, all of them, but they're almost more animalistic.
Yeah.
Talking about the script really quick, I looked this up, which it's confusing to me. David Goyer, who you all know my feelings about him, I can't stand him. He wrote the first movie, but he also wrote the second movie too. But
Yes.
I wonder if Del Toro like kind of had some input. He doesn't get credited
I
with
think
it.
so.
Goyer wrote all three.
Did he really?
Yes.
Ooh. Goyer wrote. I did find this out too. That first of all, he himself admits to not being great at dialogue, but he's good at structure, which I would agree. He does. Like even Batman v Superman. He is good at the structure there. He just can't, I'm sure he wrote the line Martha's too. So, but he can establish a tone. I found this out. David Fincher helped him out with the first Blade movie in terms of writing the hero's journey aspects of it. And Fincher was actually even supposed to direct it too, but Goyer ended up going with it. But I think, Del Toro probably had more input than what he's given credit for on that second movie, which is why it's a better script.
All right, so moving things along, we have Blade Trinity, which is basically let's get all the big names of people that are big in, the same thing, kind of like early 2000s, and put them in a movie even though they cannot act. That's basically what they did in this movie, with the exception of, obviously, Wesley Snipes. At that time, Ryan Reynolds wasn't too big of a name. He was on his way to be who he is now. That's really it that you get.
Yeah.
Like you do have other big names. You got Jessica Biel in it, who I think we can all agree isn't the best. She's just a pretty face.
She wasn't hired for her acting.
Exactly. And then Dominic Purcell as Dracula in this, which
Crazy.
Yeah. You got the return of Chris Christopherson again.
For 14 minutes.
Yep. You got Triple H, the wrestler.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I will still argue that the dialogue between him and Ryan Reynolds is still my favorite in the entire movie.
Oh, when he's torturing him?
No, afterwards he's like, "You see my dog? Have you tried the lobby?"
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Say what you will about this movie, Ryan Reynolds is hilarious in it. He's very funny. This was his first Marvel movie. This movie's terrible. It is a mess. There are some things that really work. I found Drake to be scary at times, like when he attacks the two in the like the goth store. Like that's actually like when she's trying to escape from him. Like that's like all right. These movies benefit from being rated R, but this is the movie that benefits the least from it.
Yeah.
This is the most PG-13 out of these R movies.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they literally just went, you look like a vampire, you can be part of this movie.
I will argue that Parker Posey makes things better in this movie too. Like she's an indie goddess in my world, and it's so awesome seeing her doing something mainstream.
Yeah.
And she's trying hard. But I will tell you that the only reason this movie is of any quality is Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Again, this is kind of what made Ryan Reynolds known and the Ryan Reynolds we love.
This was right after Van Wilder. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was just getting big.
Yeah.
And he got ripped for this movie. This is like the first movie where he's like jacked in it. But I do enjoy this movie. It does have its very dour, depressing moments. And then I like the Dracula transformation at the end because they do a practical suit. And I always think that a practical suit and practical effects are a little bit better. But for me, like this movie, it's so forgettable.
Yeah.
You know why? It's because there was no chemistry on the set.
Yeah.
Well,
because
Snipes
of Wesley Snipes.
Who was terrible.
He was too busy smoking pot, calling everyone a racist on this.
Leaving
just
post-it notes.
Yeah, wouldn't talk to any of the castmates.
Yeah.
It was his assistant that had to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
He refused to talk to everyone. I mean,
Did you hear about the eye-opening thing?
What's that?
So this movie has a couple of alternate endings. So in the theatrical version, Dracula turns into a version of Blade. so that Blade can escape. Like because he could shapeshift, they establish. So he turns into Blade, and then like in the autopsy room, he turns back, and they're like, "Oh no, Blade's really alive, and he's out there fighting evil." Cool. That's the theatrical version. There is a version where Blade, quote unquote, wakes up in the morgue and then attacks everybody, but Wesley Snipes apparently refused to open his eyes. So it is CGI, the eyes opening, and oh my God, it is jarring. It's terrifying. So, and then there's one where Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel are now fighting werewolves instead.
Because...
in a casino.
Do you know why?
Spin-offs.
Underworld.
Oh, yeah, same time.
That's why. They were going to do a crossover with Underworld, but then it just didn't go through because of the fact that the film rights reverted back to Marvel Studios for Blade. That's why. But all right, finish off Star City rating.
2.5. It is a completely average movie that is saved by a decent performance from some of the supporting cast.
All right, Rob.
I want to go slightly higher than that just because of it's Ryan Reynolds just made me laugh the entire time. And as a train wreck, it's interesting to watch. So I'm going to say 2 3/4. I don't know if this exists somewhere, but I would love to see, does Ryan Reynolds get more screen time than Wesley Snipes?
I don't think so.
Because he is barely in it.
Well, Ryan Reynolds, his character also goes MIA for the middle of the movie after he gets hurt. He gets hurt.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to give 2.5 as well. Again, just average movie. Would I recommend it? No. I would be like, yes, in a way. This is Ryan Reynolds being Deadpool before he was Deadpool, after he was Deadpool,
and then Green Lantern.
Yeah. But I think that's gonna wrap us up for our discussion of Blade. But before we go, we do have our fan feedback Friday.
Word. This week, what is a superpower that you would want for mundane reasons, i.e. super speed so you don't get stuck in traffic? So that was a fun one. Super strength to make moving easier and to help others in need. I guess. Our friend John from the Hey Palace New podcast. I would say telepathy so I could stop asking people things like, how are you, or what did you say? Or asking stupid questions like, what did you mean by that? That's funny. Heat vision so I can warm up my cup of coffee. That's a good one. Teleportation so I can occasionally be on time. That was me, and it's true, and I'll still be late. The ability to read a book in the dark without a light would make it easier to read at night, from our friend Karina. Let's see. The ability to raise the room temperature up by 5 degrees so I don't need a sweater. That's a good one. Rob. The ability to fly so I don't have to worry about traffic. Yeah. X-ray vision to see what is wrong with me instead of spending money going to the doctor or hospital. Womp womp.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Anything to save a buck or two. Or 100.
Is this broken? No.
No? All right, I don't need to go to the doctor.
Little ice.
Yeah. But that is going to wrap us up for this evening. We had a great time. We hope you did as well. Don't forget, you can take us on the go with Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, Podbean, or any other listening station. Don't forget, you can find all of our different podcast content as well as articles written by Rob and by Paul on our website, themisfitfaction.com, and all of the social medias that we have out there. As always, I'm Ronnie.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll be back in a flash. Smorgasbord. See ya.